You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you so much for being here with us today on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for us to discuss everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. Really excited to talk about this basketball team getting set for another big season here. We'll be at ACC kickoff tomorrow and through the rest of the week to talk about Duke football gearing up for the 2024 season. But today I've got our good friend Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Durham, stopping by. We're going to talk a little basketball. We're going to talk about an interesting story that was put out there on The Athletic about the transfer portal and how it impacted everything taking place in the world of college basketball, and we'll do that throughout the course of today's show. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Also, make sure that you check us out each and every day on YouTube. Watch these videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share it with your friends, like the videos as well. Your support just means so much to us here over at Locked On Blue Devils. And then also make sure that you follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So without further ado, I'm fired up to have him back on the show here today. It's our very good friend, Kevin Connelly, who's with us on today's program. Kevin, thanks for the time. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good, JJ. How about you?
Very well. Thank you for asking. Really excited to sit here and talk about this Duke basketball team getting set for another upcoming season and talk about kind of the latest news taking place regarding the NCAA Transfer Portal and a story that The Athletic was able to put together. As we sit there and kind of reflect back on the post-season for Duke this past year, pretty quickly we learned of players entering the transfer portal, unlike they did after Jon Scheyer's first season. A lot of movement taking place in college basketball.
Yeah, it felt like Duke was kind of the outlier if you look at last offseason. And they didn't add anybody through the portal, and they didn't lose anybody through the portal. And over the last couple of years, that's kind of unheard of in college basketball. And I guess like everything in this world, everything finds its mean and eventually evens out. And that's where you saw, 10 players leave the program this year, 7 to the portal, 2 to the NBA, and 1 to graduation. So everything finds its way of evening out. Obviously, they added 4 players in the portal as well. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone has their feelings, whether it's positive or negative, about the portal, about NIL, and all this other stuff that's going in the world, not just the college basketball, but college athletics too. Obviously, college basketball and college football get probably the biggest headlines of the transfer portal. But if you look at other sports like baseball, softball, even go into women's basketball a little bit as well, the portal runs rampant in every single college sport. So I know all fans have their opinions on it. Coaches certainly have their opinions on it, but it doesn't really matter because right now it's here to stay. And with basically no rules in college sports anymore, it feels like it's just going to get more and more chaotic every offseason.
And Kevin, that's really what I liked about the story that The Athletic was able to put together with one of our friends of the program, Brendan Marks, along with CJ Moore and Kyle Tucker, and their reporting. It was a college basketball confidential tampering transfer portal free-for-all and what's next. And throughout the course of their story, nobody is identified. Everybody gets the opportunity to stay anonymous, but they've got quotes from Division I head coaches at mid-majors, at high majors, and the same goes for players as well throughout the course of the story. Some numbers to give the folks here on the show. A record 1,962 men's basketball players entered the transfer portal this spring. Nearly 2,000, again, 1,962 men's players entered the transfer portal. That's more than 5 players per roster. And again, college basketball, you only have 13 scholarship players. The portal pool has grown by about 200 players per year since it was introduced in 2018, meaning the mark is trending to hit 2,000 players coming next season. So 13 players on your roster. On average, college basketball teams are seeing 5 of them at least go ahead and hit the road. And as you go throughout the course of the story, And John Shire alluded to this in a recent interview he did again on the Devil's Den podcast. Many coaches talking about the fact that players' agents, their families, people within the circle, sometimes even the players themselves were hearing from other teams throughout the course of the season.
Well, yeah, and I think obviously in this story, a lot of people stayed anonymous, but top-tier head coaches in this sport have already gone on the record and said that their players have been tampered with during the course of the season. Obviously, John Shire coming out now months later after the season has ended and saying that players on the Duke roster had been contacted by other schools during the season. If you remember, I think it was all the way back into March, right around the conference tournaments, maybe even before that. Dan Hurley, the head coach of UConn, who ends up being the back-to-back national champions, he was saying during the season, in the midst of their national championship run, that players on his roster were being contacted by other schools. So, yeah, coaches have gone on the record anonymously in saying this, but also, I mean, John Shire and Dan Hurley, they're two of the biggest names in the sport right now in terms of head coaches, and they've gone on the record and said that other programs and other agents and schools have contacted players on their roster while they're still playing. And you look at the transfer portal right now, and I mean, I don't know how many of your listeners have saw it yesterday. I mean, I'm connected in there a little bit because it was a former St. John's player, but July 22nd, and a former St. John's player who had entered the portal, committed to Grand Canyon, then decommitted, just committed to Oklahoma. I mean, I feel like that's very late in the process that this happens on July 22nd, that somebody in the transfer portal just found their new home, when I'm not fully up to date on Oklahoma's offseason workout plans, but I would imagine just like everybody else in the country, they've been well underway, and you just have a player committing there in late July, when you would imagine their fall semester is going to be starting in just a couple of weeks now in August. So, yeah, it's certainly crazy. There's a lot of twists and turns, and I feel like it's only I guess you're reading the tea leaves of how my tone's coming across. I feel like it's only going to get worse going forward, and you're going to see a lot of this process dragged out, and coaches don't like it. And who knows if more rules come in about the NBA draft with players who declare early and don't get drafted, could they possibly return? I know coaches do not want that to happen. Once you say you're going to the NBA draft, you're in the NBA draft, and then you find your way through the G League or overseas if you don't get picked. But I know certainly players want that option as well, and we'll see if that ends up coming down the line for them over the next couple of years.
It's going to be wild to watch it all play out, to see what it looks like. A lot of things changing in the college basketball world. Coaches have always had the flexibility to move wherever they want to. Players now have that freedom as well. And again, coming next year, if things continue on this trend, over 2,000 players will enter the transfer portal once the 2024-2025 season takes place. A good off-season basketball discussion. So you might ask yourselves, how could this impact next year's Duke basketball team? That's a big question Duke fans might be wondering. We'll give you some responses to that after we take our first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, this time of year, not as many live sports taking place other than our good friends with Major League Baseball. And I certainly love watching my Atlanta Braves and the rest of the league each and every day. About a week away from the MLB trade deadline. Hopefully exciting things are coming there in baseball. FanDuel right now knows that the playoffs are right around the corner, and they want you to get all the best lines and odds, futures odds, game-by-game odds as well. FanDuel hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball, also a proud sponsor of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. All right, let's keep moving forward. Kevin Connelly's here with us from Ball Durham. We teased it a moment ago. We're talking about the college basketball transfer portal. It's absolute madness. Again, a really good story put together on The Athletic. I'd encourage you to go check it out by CJ Moore, Brendan Marks of Kyle Tucker putting it all together. But we're talking about this transfer portal. This past season that just ended, over 5 players per team on average entered the transfer portal. Duke saw 7 players transfer out that will play for different schools this upcoming season. So the question asks, with this trending in that direction, how can that impact Duke going into this upcoming season? Kevin, I turn it to you.
Well, I don't know how much is going to impact them this upcoming season because, I mean, they do have the 4 transfers that they brought in, 3 of them likely going to see significant minutes. And they did add the 6-man recruiting class that's comprised of freshmen. So if it impacts them, that's the way it would impact them this upcoming season. I think you're looking towards next season. And obviously you're going to have players that head off to the NBA draft. Cooper Flagg, Common Malawak, maybe Con Knipple, Isaiah Evans. Maybe they leave after one season and head to the NBA. But I think you've seen it already in especially the recruiting class of 2025 prospects that Duke doesn't have a commitment yet. And yes, it's still late July and there's a lot of time to go. But Jon Scheyer has even said it throughout this offseason that he's not going to have many more of these 6-7-man freshman recruiting classes. Maybe not even 5. Maybe he's only going to take anywhere between 2 to 4 high school recruits and then comprise the rest of the roster with players in the transfer portal, because I think coaches have a delicate balance of everyone says experience wins in the NCAA tournament, right? But yes, experience wins, but that experience also has to be very talented. So I think Jon Scheyer is now going to try and use that balance of having these high-prized potential lottery NBA picks as freshmen, but also you want to go a little bit down your roster and have those guys that have played over 100 games in their college careers already and have March Madness experience. And you also have to find guys, and maybe they have some in this upcoming recruiting class who are going to stay a couple of years, like a Darren Harris or a Patton Ngaba or somebody like that, because you have 2 guys, you're only 2 returners in Tyrese Proctor, who's played 2 seasons, and Caleb Foster, who just finished his freshman season. So I think the way the roster is constructed is going to be really important going forward when you look at off seasons 25, 26, 27, and et cetera, because this is a Duke team that really has been one of the leaders in high school basketball recruiting. And right now they have no committed prospects for 2025. And really not before Friday, they hadn't even offered anybody in 2026, and now they've offered 3 players, including the top-ranked player in the country in Brandon McCoy. So Jon Scheyer is still going to be going after those 5-star, top 5 type players, but I think you're going to see a lot more transfers on the Duke basketball roster over the next several years.
And that's what we could talk about here. From that perspective, how could this impact Duke going into the new season? Like we talked about, many coaches are talking about tampering taking place within the sport. And so on a Duke basketball team going into the year that does have 6 freshmen, you have to wonder if certain guys aren't playing, is their phone more active? Are they, more open to hearing out offers following a year like this? Because Jon Scheyer even said as much in his interview with the Devil's Den podcast once again, kind of talking about the fact that, hey, only 5 guys can play. There's only 1 basketball. We talk about it all the time. A lot of eyeballs are going to be on this Duke basketball team this upcoming season. I'm sure several programs in America would like one of the many people who make up Duke's very talented roster this season. So, yeah, I guess that's the angle that I'm thinking of it from, Kevin, is how do you work through that? That's got to be I know it's a challenge for Scheyer and his coaching staff because, again, you can't play everybody. And you really are going to find out who all is truly committed to Duke, who wants to be a Duke basketball player.
Yeah, and I think this upcoming season, you mentioned it's really tough because it seems like this team does have a lot of depth on its roster. But as we've talked about over the past couple of seasons, once late January and February rolls around, your rotation kind of gets dwindled down to 7, maybe 8 guys that are going to play. And you look at this Duke team, again, not to forecast all the way until February or March, but even in the short term, when you look at November and December, yes, you can only play 5 guys, and it feels like 3 of those spots are already locked up with Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, and Cooper Flagg. Like those guys, if those 3 aren't leading the team in minutes, again, barring injury, I'll be stunned. So then you only have really 2 spots left where you're trying to get a handful of other guys on the floor. So I guess it's a good problem to have, but it's certainly something that it is a problem. And John Shire has to sift through it with his coaching staff and find that right combination of players that could give the team the best chance for success on the floor.
Without a doubt, we'll see how it all comes together. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to see this Duke basketball team win, and it just takes a lot to get that done, and we'll see exactly what the roster looks like to put together a winner for the years to come with Duke basketball. And once you get into the season, who plays, who sits, how is it impacted by tampering that may or may not be taking place. All right, we got to take one more quick break here on the program today, and then we'll start to wrap things up on this Tuesday episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Thank you again for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen today. Make sure you check out Locked On ACC for your second listen. As I mentioned, it is ACC Media Days. Alex Dono, Kenton Gibbs doing a great job giving you all the latest news and storylines from Charlotte. Will be there later this week as well. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. It's Locked On Sports Today that's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now, available on the free Fire TV channels app. Go ahead and check it all out. Locked On Sports Today. He's back here with us. It's Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Ball Durham. You could follow him on X at KevinConnelly24. Tell us about your website, Kevin.
Over at balldurham.com. Right now, we're really on top of recruiting stuff with Peach Jam finishing up over the weekend. Mentioned briefly before, Duke's starting to offer now some 2026 prospects. They're getting included in the top 10 or top 8 finalists of some 2025 prospects. Feels like there's a lot of chatter going around about the recruitment of the Boozer twins after Peach Jam concluded and how the race has tightened up over the last couple of weeks. Felt like Miami was the front runner, and now it seems like Duke and Florida could be closing the gap on them. So we're on top of that as well. So yeah, we got it all over at balldurham.com. And obviously once players report back to campus, well, they'll be leaving in a couple of days now, and then they'll report back towards the end of August for the start of the fall semester. We'll be all over that as well. So come read us over at balldurham.com, and you can follow us on X at ball_Durham.
You do such a great job not only talking about the current team, not only talking about future Blue Devils as well, but past Blue Devils. We love watching them and what they're up to, right? We saw Team USA finish off their exhibition games yesterday with a win over Germany. Jason Tatum, Grant Hill and company set to lead USA over to the Paris Olympics. 5-0 start for Team USA. They've been tested, Kevin, and one might think, hey, that might be a good thing before they get into games where, hey, if you lose, you could be done once you get into the medal rounds.
Oh, and one of the teams they were tested by was South Sudan, who has Duke freshman Kaman Malawak getting some minutes on the team. And I think everyone kind of saw what the expectation was, that offensively he's still really, really raw. He has the ability to step outside and hit a couple of shots away from the paint, but I think the biggest thing in his short time on the court in that game was how good of a defensive player he could be, holding his own defensively against some of the best in the world. And then kind of what we talked about with Cooper Flagg playing at the Team USA training camp, when you get back to Duke and you're playing against college players, not that I'm going to say it's going to be easy, but the level of competition is obviously a couple of notches down from when you're playing in the Olympics against Team USA. So I think that was a really positive sign for Duke, seeing Kaman Malawak and South Sudan play against Team USA.
Without a doubt, really impressed. 7 points for Kaman, 3 of 4 shooting from the floor, including a 3-point shot that he made. Really impressive stuff from, again, just such a young player out there competing for his country alongside NBA players and then going up against the best of the best that happens to be Team USA. So I would expect Team USA to go on a run. They're still the favorites to win the gold medal. I get worried, Kevin. I want it to happen. I want this to be over with. I want the United States to take home that gold medal. They've been tested. I think ultimately they can get it done. But yeah, you got to go out there and win it. They're not going to win on paper. They've actually got to go do the work.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be fun to watch. I mean, they get another matchup in pool play with South Sudan and Kaman Malawak. So it is going to be interesting. And they are the favorites, but as a what? They were a 43.5-point favorite against South Sudan, and they need a last-second bucket by LeBron James to win. And their odds to win the gold medal kind of dropped precipitously. I think they were something like a minus 600 favorite to win the gold medal before that game, and they went down to maybe minus 350 or something like that. So the rest of the world, they're not afraid of Team USA, as we saw in these exhibitions. So we'll see if Grant Hill seems like he put the right pieces together on the team. We'll see if his fellow Blue Devil and Jason Tatum can help him out in Paris.
I can't wait to watch. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. They'll get started this weekend. Sunday, that first game in pool play from Paris in the 2024 Summer Olympics. So, Kevin, as we talk about other things in Duke, to sort of wrap things up, we also saw NBA Summer League come to a close last night. Exciting finish in overtime with the Miami Heat winning the championship over the Memphis Grizzlies. But from the Duke perspective, what jumped out to you?
I think Jared McCain looked like a first-round draft pick, and I know Philadelphia 76ers in their offseason moves are gearing up for a championship run this season, so they've added a couple of guards, obviously the big move with Paul George, but for what you've seen in Summer League, it certainly looks like Jared McCain can contribute to the NBA team this very season. I think you say the same thing with Kyle Filipowski. It wasn't a great start for him. They were playing in the Salt Lake City Summer League first before heading over to Las Vegas, and it was a little bit of a rocky start, but especially the way Kyle closed out the Summer League certainly gives you hope for him and latching on to a Utah team that might not be that good this year, which could be good for him and getting him playing time. I think a forgotten name, DJ Stewart. He played really well with his hometown Chicago Bulls. He earned a two-way contract, so that was good for him. And then you saw a couple of other guys, AJ Griffin getting out on the court in Summer League after he was hampered by injuries really the last two seasons. Wendell Moore was out there. And we also saw Dariq Whitehead, and it wasn't a great Summer League for Dariq Whitehead. He really struggled to shoot the basketball with the Brooklyn Nets, but you remember he also didn't play at all last season as he's still recovering from that broken foot he suffered at Duke. Came back, didn't heal properly, had surgery again, really missed the entirety just about of last season. So he's trying to work his way back on the court, and hopefully he can perform better in training camp with the Brooklyn Nets, because that's another team that's not expected to be very good this year. So there'd be opportunity for him to get on the court and play. And certainly he has all the potential in the world, but just needs his legs underneath him and that confidence to play at the NBA level.
As it got later in Summer League, we saw Trevor Keels start to get some playing time for the Houston Rockets. He had a really good final game for Houston, a couple of DNPs, though, for Keels. So you're curious what his next steps might be. And then also Marquise Bolden got some run with the Golden State Warriors in Summer League after being on the Charlotte Hornets roster this past year. Marquise Bolden could be a factor for an NBA team this season. So even if you don't get drafted, even if you're a second-round draft pick, you mentioned DJ Stewart. I mean, Summer League's a great opportunity. DJ goes out and earns a two-way contract. He's going to get time with the big league club this season. Like really impressive stuff can happen throughout the course of a couple of weeks there in Vegas.
Yeah, if you just continue to put the work in, I think now with the NBA G League and the two-way contracts, it really makes there more incentive for these guys to stick around and try and fight for an NBA roster spot instead of immediately going overseas to try and play some ball. I think everyone's was hoping and searching for Jabari Parker resurfacing. No, last year he was rumored to be playing in Summer League before going overseas, and obviously the story came out with him a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago now, with his emotional response of having a season overseas under his belt. But yeah, certainly a lot of Blue Devils are in the mix, and we'll see how they perform and if they're able to latch on to NBA rosters this upcoming season.
Kevin, really do appreciate your time as always joining us. Really good stuff. You've got great work over at Ball Durham. One more time, promote your work.
Yes, you could come read us every day over at balldurham.com, and then you could follow us on social media at ball_Durham on X.
Talk to you soon, Kevin. Enjoy the rest of the week, okay?
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. That's going to do it for our show here today. As always, thank you for your support. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the podcast. We're going to continue to make Locked On Blue Devils the best thing ever. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.